Throughout the years, many have enjoyed the wild and twisted tales that the SCP authors have been able to come up with, including myself. Today, I want to talk about one of the more interesting topics in the SCP Foundation lore, and that's SCP-001. When I first began my long voyage of absolutely fangirling over the SCP universe, one of the things that always confused me and kind of eluded me was the SCP-001s. If you're anything like me, you love watching YouTube videos. You can sit in front of a computer all day and watch YouTube videos if you were able to. And I, for one, am a huge fan of the horror/disturbing/weird genre of videos. Things like analog horror, like the Mandela Catalog, or eldritch horror, like the Lovecraftian monsters, stuff like that. Things like that have always consumed me and just drew me in. And of course, with this being the type of media that I enjoy, the SCP Foundation is on that list of things that I watch on YouTube on a consistent basis. One day, after like just a completely horrible day, my computer decided to kick the bucket randomly and I just had a bad day at work. Whatever. It was rough. Like any normal person would, I sat on the couch and I doom scrolled for like hours. And I came across an SCP-001 video, specifically the Gate Guardian. And then right after watching this video, I came across another SCP-001 video, the Scarlet King. And this got me thinking, why do we have so many SCP-001s? You see, this wasn't really explained too well in the video, right? I never really sat down and heard somebody explain to me why they have so many SCP-001. So I decided to do my research, and come to find out, there's like 53 of these things. And after finding this out, I completely nerded out and learned about all 53. And I need to put the information somewhere. So what better way to share the information than to post it on YouTube for like 10 people to see? So, with that being said, I'm going to begin a new YouTube series where I will explain every single SCP-001 proposal, and afterwards I'll put them in a tier list of my choosing. I know you're not supposed to do that. I don't care. I'm gonna do it. So, before we get into the meat and potatoes of the video, I first want to explain what makes an SCP an SCP-001. And in order to do this, I first have to explain the history behind the SCP Foundation. The very first place that the SCP Foundation was ever mentioned was on the 4chan Paranormal board back in 2007. This is like ancient history. The post shows the first ever and probably the most iconic SCP ever, SCP-173. That's the stone statue that snaps your neck whenever you look away from it. Actually pretty simple, but it did its job for the time. After this post, many other users decided to start posting their own SCPs with their own lore and stories to go along with their SCPs. This concept of SCPs gained traction, and only a year later a collaborative wiki was launched in 2008 to act as a database for all of the SCPs and the lore related to the SCPs. And before we move on, I want to first more like explain what a collaborative wiki is. This basically means that the SCP Foundation and all of the lore and stories that go into what makes the SCP Foundation is community driven. Writers from around the world are able to create new stories, new SCPs, new collaborative tales to contribute to the lore of the SCP Foundation. And with so many writers contributing to the lore, there are bound to be plot holes here and there. And in the case of the SCP Foundation, plot holes here and there is kind of an understatement. Dude, there are like so many plot holes and so many different stories that are inconsistent with one another that the best way to explain the SCP Foundation's canon is that there is no canon. You believe whatever it is that you want to believe, and this is how the authors wanted it. This was the goal all along. Like, for example, SCP-5909 is literally just an advertisement for Red Lobster's. One second, I have to read it off because you'll see. It's literally just an advertisement for Red Lobster's Spring Steam Bake Endless Shrimp Special that they used to put on. That Spring Steam Bake Endless Shrimp Special part, I tried to say like 5 times without reading and I just couldn't. Now, this seems normal, right? Like, yeah, dude, it's an advertisement, right? Like, whatever. Well, This advertisement comes in the form of an Alaskan pink shrimp that is estimated to be about 2.1 light years in length and is located in the middle of space, approximately 7.5 light years from our galaxy. Like, that's definitely canon for me. And the best part about it is that, like, if the shrimp gets close enough to our solar system, it will be catastrophic. The shrimp is so large that the gravitational pull from the shrimp would just throw everything out of whack. Like I said, dude, it's 2.1 light years in length. I don't exactly know how big that is, but he's definitely a hefty boy for certain. And by the way, the Red Lobster Steamless Endless whatever the hell, the advertisement is found on the top part of the shrimp. And the way that we figure this out is through a series of Twitter posts. And by the way, this entry was updated in 2025. So fun fact, in this canon of the SCP series, X is still Twitter in 2025. That's pretty cool. I thought that was neat. Anyway, these posts leads to a live camera feed that literally just shows this on the back of this 2.1 light year long shrimp in the middle of space. And like I said, I believe that this SCP is 100% canon, no doubt in my mind. It's perfect in every way and I love it. Okay, so where history? Right, okay. So for those of you that are observant enough, you would have realized that SCP-173 is not SCP-001, which is odd because chronologically 173 was the very first SCP to ever be created. And well, just like almost every other piece of fiction, the SCP author that first created 173 didn't expect the SCP Foundation to blow up like it did. So they just didn't think to name 173 SCP-001. I mean, maybe they did know. I'm guessing that they didn't know that the Foundation will blow up like that, but who really knows at this point? As time went on and the SCP Foundation got more and more popular, fans began to speculate which SCP could be SCP-001. Until eventually, in the same year that the wiki was created, an author by the name of Jonathan Ball wrote an SCP proposal for SCP-001. And so it began. Different authors began creating a multitude of different SCP-001 proposals. And this trend has continued for 17 years to present day, and the creators have still not named a winner of the proposals. And this is on purpose. As stated before, the whole point of the wiki and the SCP lore is to believe whatever it is that you want to believe. If the creators were to just name one single winner of the proposals, then that would take away the magic from the lore. It's your job to find which one you like the most and decide whether or not that's the SCP-001 for you. Now, the in-universe explanation for this is a little bit different. Basically, the O5 Council / the administrator / whoever the hell runs the Foundation has decided it's best not to reveal what SCP-001 is for reasons we're too unimportant or stupid to understand. My guess, and a lot of other people's guess, is to not allow competitors of the SCP Foundation to figure out their secrets and, like, you know, keep this stigma of mysteriousness surrounding the Foundation. Whatever the reason is, we don't really know. And then that sparks just like a ton of different theories. Like, one of my favorites is that all of the SCP-001 proposals might actually not even be real. Like, they might not even be real SCPs. What if they're just all little breadcrumbs and the truth is actually far greater than what we see on the surface? That's like a whole nother video for the future. But yeah, it goes deep. Anyway, with all of that being said, and all of the history and background given, I think I am finally comfortable enough to... Why did I say it like that? Comfortable enough. I said it like I'm a girl who just went on like the 5th date with you, and now I'm finally comfortable enough to... finally comfortable enough to jump into the very first SCP-001 proposal. And that is Jonathan Ball's Sheaf of Papers. Codename Jonathan Ball. Sheaf of Papers. Item number SCP-001. Object class Keter. This is sadly my second time recording this section of the video because the first time all the clips just disappeared. I don't know where they went. So, the sheaf of papers describes a packet of papers that is stapled together in the top left corner, with the top sheet reading, "Confidential report on special items classified." The number of papers stapled behind the covering sheet are unknown, but it typically ranges between 3 to 30. The report is unsigned and its origins are unknown. Now, upon seeing the packet of papers, the user of the operator, the person doing the opening of the packet of papers, will see an SCP report of some kind. And by report, I mean these things. The things that we read on the SCP wiki that we get all of our information from, like the special containments, the item numbers, the object classes. Yeah, this is what they see. And upon reading the SCP report, the user may realize that they are reading a report on an SCP that is not currently within SCP custody, or the Foundation custody, sorry. And this is because the sheaf of papers is doing one of two things, maybe both, depending on what you want to believe. The sheaf of papers is either currently manifesting this SCP that the report is about, or warning this person that this SCP has manifested recently somewhere within the world and you need to stop what you're doing and go secure and contain. It's unknown which one the sheaf of papers is doing, so it can either be benevolent or malevolent. I just learned what those words meant. I'm so happy I was able to use them in this. It's really up for you to decide. What is for certain is that upon discovering a new SCP report of that SCP will be found within the sheaf of papers. Now, the history of the sheaf of papers is quite boring. There's not a whole lot to it. One day, it just randomly appeared on a dude's desk and it just never went away. And I would love to give you the name of this dude, but unfortunately, the name's redacted, so we don't know. I do want to mention that this redacted doctor, technically he's a doctor. This redacted doctor was contacted by somebody or something concerning the sheaf of papers, but unfortunately, this somebody or something is also redacted, so yeah. And that just about does it for the sheaf of papers. A very simple and plain SCP, but it gets the job done, and I like it for that. Like, even though it is such a simple proposal, it's definitely one of my favorites due to its simplicity. I don't know. It's one of the better ones in my opinion. And I'm also biased towards it too. This proposal involves one of the best collaborative tales that I have ever read for any SCP. And it goes by the name of Pila. I'm not going to spoil it at all. If you've never read Pila, I highly recommend going to go read it. It's a fantastic read, and it's only like 10 minutes. And it takes the sheaf of papers and the idea of the sheaf of papers and plays with it to where I can't even explain it, man. You have to go read it. It's a good read. I love it. The second proposal is Dr. Gear's SCP-001 proposal, known as the Prototype. Codename, Dr. Gears. The Prototype. Item designation number 86243AR-001. Warning. Item displays aggressive and dangerous behavior. So the Prototype describes a 6'5" humanoid creature with an emaciated appearance. Its legs are long and thin, with the ending being sharp black points. The arms are also long, with the 3 fingers on each hand also ending in black points. The Prototype has a large spherical head and a large mouth to complement its large spherical head. And upon opening its mouth, the Prototype will reveal its eye. The eye held within its mouth allows the Prototype to create little singularities that act as tiny black holes. The Prototype can actually teleport to these singularities, and these singularities also cause extreme damage to the surrounding environment. Now, I've heard different ways that these singularities actually cause this damage. The official report on the Prototype states that the damage comes from the massive amount of radiation that emits from each singularity. But on the Villains wiki, this is like a different wiki that I get a lot of the information on each SCP from, but this wiki says that the singularities actually pull everything in towards it. It pulls objects in like a mini black hole, and that's what causes all of the environmental damage, or human damage too. I guess if a human was nearby, it would cause damage to the human as well. And honestly, I think it's the latter, simply because a black hole sounds much cooler than just radiation. I don't know. Like, I've played Fallout for years of my life, and whenever you get an extreme amount of radiation like on you, you just kind of die. You fall over and die. But if you're near a black hole, like I don't know, dude. Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. I also would like to note that the prototype sees humans as its only food source, and it is unknown to what degree the prototype sees animals as a food source, if at all. So yeah, if you already didn't like this thing, there you go. You have another reason not to like this thing. And for the powers and abilities and the supernatural abilities of the prototype, that is it. That's it. Nothing really too special, nothing too crazy about the thing. However, what truly makes the prototype special and an SCP-001 proposal is in its name, the prototype. SCP-001, the prototype, is often thought to be the very first SCP that the Foundation was ever able to secure and contain. The Foundation was able to contain the prototype before they were even known as the Foundation. Hence the name, the prototype. As when the Foundation discovered and secured this thing, it was still in its infancy. It was a prototype of the Foundation that we know today. This is why the report on the prototype is so much different compared to all of the other reports that we can read on the wiki. At the time of securing this SCP, the Foundation didn't have item numbers, they didn't have containment procedures, they didn't even have object classes at the time. In fact, the object class Keter. Why is my shit shaking? In fact, the object class Keter comes from this SCP. While the Foundation was trying to secure this SCP, it killed a lot of SCP personnel, including a Dr. Herman Keter. And to pay tribute to this Dr. Herman Keter, the Foundation decided to create a class of anomalies that are extremely difficult and dangerous to secure and contain, like the prototype, and call them Keter. So even though the prototype itself is not all that, it's what the prototype stands for that truly makes it a good SCP-001 proposal, in my opinion. Like, seriously, dude, I used to low-key hate this proposal, especially compared to some of the other proposals that we're gonna get into later. But as time goes on, I find myself absolutely loving this proposal. Not for its powers or its physical appearance, but what the SCP stands for. It gives us an early look at the Foundation, a foundation that was just beginning to establish its roots. And even though we don't get like a whole lot of information on this early Foundation, we really only get this report, it's still something. And I seriously appreciate it for that. Now we're gonna get into the third proposal. The third proposal is Dr. Clef's The Gate Guardian. Codename, Dr. Clef, The Gate Guardian. Item number, SCP-001. Object class, Euclid/Keter. Oh boy, here we go. If you have never heard of the Gate Guardian, boy do I have an SCP for you. The Gate Guardian is probably my top 3 favorite SCP. It's a Giga Chad in every way, and I wake up every morning wishing that I was the Gate Guardian. The Gate Guardian describes a 700 cubits tall flaming angel that wields a flaming sword. That's very large, that's tall. That's like bigger than the Eiffel Tower, right? It has a number of luminous wings emerging from its shoulders, back, temple, ankles, and wrists. The number of these wings are different for everybody who views the angel, with people saying it has anywhere from around 2 to 104 wings at any given time, with the mean number being around 4, so most people will see it having 4 wings. The angel stands with its head bowed in a gesture of supplication, with its flaming fiery sword held in both hands pointing downwards. And from the Foundation's knowledge, it has never derived from this stance. Observers of the Gate Guardian report that it stands in front of a gate of immense proportion, with long-range photographs occasionally detecting what appears to be a pastoral grove within this gate. There are also numerous other entities of the same composition as the Gate Guardian within this gate as well. We're definitely going to come back to this part. This implies a lot. So, the Gate Guardian has the ability to telepathically communicate with any persons that makes visual contact with it, and this makes for some insane interactions. For example, in the addendum section of the report, we can read a multitude of different experiments that the Foundation has tried to run on the Gate Guardian. And the one that stands out to me the most is actually the very first experiment that they ever tried. In this experiment, the Foundation instructed a D class to walk towards the Gate Guardian on foot. And upon seeing the Gate Guardian, the Class D heard the word leave in its head, which we know is the work of the Gate Guardian and its telepathic powers. souls. And upon hearing this and also seeing like an insane celestial being of immense proportion, the Class D turns around and leaves. Well, the Foundation didn't like this, and they told the Class D to turn back around and approach the Gate Guardian. And after giving repeated orders to this Class D to turn back around, the Foundation eventually terminated the Class D for insubordination. So, in response to this, the Gate Guardian decided to obliterate all known research staff that was involved with this experiment. I'm not kidding. And, like, I say obliterate, the Gate Guardian obliterated everybody from existence. There's no trace of them. And keep in mind, the Gate Guardian never derived from its stance this whole time. The research staff just like spontaneously combust out of nowhere while the Gate Guardian stands there menacingly. It's Hi everybody, it's Gavin from the future here. I wanted to add part of the report of the Gate Guardian in this part of the video because it's just too good not to mention, and I completely forgot to talk about it when I originally recorded these clips. So the most common directive that the Gate Guardian gives the people who see him is forget, which will result in the subject walking away from the Gate Guardian and forgetting ever have encountering it. But on rare occasions, the Gate Guardian gives different directives. And the most famous of these is the one given to the founder of the Foundation, and that is prepare, which he claimed motivated him to create the SCP Foundation. So there you have it. There you go. I needed to add that. That's sick. I needed to add that part. I'm sorry. All right, continue. The experiments also detail how close humans or objects can get to the Gate Guardian and its gate before like something happens, which they also... No! The Foundation sent a ground robot, 100 flying drones, a wire-guided missile. They even shot a nuclear warhead at the Gate Guardian from a submarine that was located deep within the Indian Ocean. And upon reaching the 1 kilometer mark of the Gate Guardian and its gate, all of these things were obliterated from existence. And once again, like the research staff, the Gate Guardian never derived from its stance this whole time. They all just kind of spontaneously combusted out of nowhere. And they were gone. No trace of them. And yeah, like you heard me correct. The nuclear warhead that was shot from the Indian Ocean reached the 1 kilometer mark of this thing and just was obliterated. Nowhere, no trace. And as if that wasn't enough already, the Gate Guardian was like, alright, I'm gonna blow up that submarine too. Like So the Gate Guardian obliterated the submarine that was located deep within the Indian Ocean. The Gate Guardian is nearby the Indian Ocean, but he's like, well, she, whatever it is, they're like miles away from this submarine. Like, they are incredibly far away from this submarine. So, whatever you want to make of that. And this submarine being obliterated by the Gate Guardian caused the SCP universe equivalent of the 2004 tsunami and earthquakes that completely devastated some of the coastal regions of, I just put it devastated surrounding coast of the Indian Ocean. I should probably, if I'm going to mention it, I should probably get like exactly what regions were devastated. It says that the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami most severely impacted Indonesia, Sri Lanka, India, and Thailand. Yeah, this killed thousands of people, by the way. So, depending on what you want to believe, this is personally what I believe, the actions of the Foundation killed thousands of innocent lives on the Indian Ocean coast because some suit, or more like lab coat in a lab somewhere, was just like, let's nuke it. Let's see what happens. And obviously we learn one thing from this. The Gate Guardian is not afraid to take innocent lives by any means. I like it just because the Gate Guardian is a prime example of fuck around and find out. It's amazing. And I think the Foundation eventually found this out because, like I said, whoever the hell runs the Foundation was eventually like, alright, yeah, no more experiments. We're done. And this is all well and dandy. Like, the powers of the Gate Guardian are freaking awesome. They are sick. Definitely some of the coolest that I've seen. However, what really makes the Gate Guardian one of my favorite SCPs is how it relates to the real world and pieces of biblical relevancy. So, within the report of the Gate Guardian, the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, are referenced a lot. And if you know anything about those religions, you know that angels come up a lot within those religions. Angels are said to be God's servants or messengers. And after reading the report and with my context and knowledge of the Abrahamic religions, I can confidently say that the gate guardian is an angel from one of the Abrahamic faiths. That's why throughout this whole entry, I've been referring to the gate guardian as an angel. More specifically, the gate guardian is known as a cherub. The cherub, or the plural word cherubim, is one out of the 9 angel archetypes that are seen within these religions. Cherubim are known to be some of the most powerful angels. Well, all angel archetypes are powerful. There isn't like a best one, like there isn't like a most powerful one except God probably. But the cherubim are one of the more important angel archetypes because they are often tasked by God to guard holy and sacred places. And one of these holy places that God entrusted some of the cherubim to protect is the Garden of Eden. And remember that gate that I was talking about earlier within the entry, with the pastoral grove within it and all of the other entities with the same composition as the gate guardian? Yeah, remember that? Yeah, that's the Garden of Eden. So the gate guardian isn't just guarding any random gate. No, it's guarding the gates to the Garden of Eden. I said that, I tried to say that like 3 times. It's a tongue twister if you say it too fast, which is freaking insane to me. Dude, it's sick. Like, there's so much more that I want to say about this SCP. I could spend hours talking about it. From the Gate Guardian's relationship with Cain and Abel, to other biblical sources outright saying the name of the angel that supposedly guards the gates to the Garden of Eden. Yes, we may know the name of the Gate Guardian. That's what I meant by saying that. There's just so much more to this SCP that meets the eye, and you have to read through it a couple times for you to fully grasp what everything means from it. But I promised myself I wouldn't go there. There are a lot of proposals in this video that I have to cover, and if I do go fully in depth with the Gate Guardian, we will be here for 10 hours. As much as I would love to do that, I just can't. I'm sorry. With that being said, we're going to move on from the Gate Guardian, but in the future, I'm definitely going to be making a standalone video on this SCP. Let's move on to the 4th SCP-001 proposal, which is QNTM's proposal, the Lock. Codename QNTM, the Lock. Item number SCP-001. Object class, safe. The lock describes a beautiful onyx gemstone with a molted white pattern etched within it. Wrapped around the gemstone's exterior is a complex golden lock. The whereabouts of the key to this lock are unknown. The lock continuously emits a small quantity of thermal radiation in the microwave range. Whatever that really means, dude, I'm not a scientist. I'm here to explain it to you. I don't know. And the white molted pattern etched within the onyx gemstone emits fractionally more radiation than the black onyx areas of the gemstone. This could possibly be due to the fact that the molted white patterns that are etched within the onyx part of the gemstone are identical to that of the microwave background of the universe. Once again, dude, I'm no scientist, I don't know. NASA was able to observe the microwaves that the universe emits, and they found that the molted white patterns etched within the gemstone are identical to these microwaves. I guess visually, they're identical. Like if you can see the microwaves on a graph, visually they would be identical. I don't really know. Doesn't really go into a whole lot of detail, I'm gonna be honest with you. It's also said that the lock is indestructible. The Foundation has tried just about everything to unlock this lock, except like the most obvious answer, which I'm going to get into in a second, but I first want to mention what they tried to do to the lock. They tried lock picking, brute force with a sledgehammer. They tried heating the lock up. They tried putting the lock into a car crusher, which then broke the car crusher. They tried applying acid to the lock. They tried direct application of an industrial cutting laser, in which the laser then just reflected off of the lock and I assume destroyed all of the surrounding area. And in Foundation fashion, of course, they dropped a nuke on the lock, which had no effect. None of these did. So the Foundation has tried literally everything to open up this lock, except the key that opens up any lock known to man. This key is SCP-005, the skeleton key. And the fact that the Foundation has not used this key to open this lockup is crazy. Huh? Like, dude, use the key. Sometimes this is the type of stuff that I don't like within the Foundation, because it's stuff like this, where it's like, alright, there's one SCP that you can use to, like, fix this SCP with, but you don't. Well, that SCP doesn't exist in this universe. Like, nah, bro, you can't do that. Like, and it supposedly opens any lock as long as the user opening the lock with the key knows what they are trying to open is in fact a lock. So we know that the Foundation knows that what they're trying to use the key on would be a lock, because they called the SCP the lock. Like, look, I guess you could say the skeleton key just doesn't exist in this canon of the Foundation. And to that I say, that is so cheap. That's the biggest cop-out ever. Give us an explanation. Give us something. Say like the skeleton key broke off in the lock as they were trying to open up the lock with it, or something. Give us something. Because for people who know about the skeleton key, they read the lock and they're like, okay, the Foundation is clearly trying to open up this lock. Whatever it has in it, which I'm going to explain what it has in it later. Regardless of anything, they tried to open up this lock multiple different ways, except the way that makes the most sense. So the lock was first discovered by a Scottish aristocrat in the 17th century while traveling across the Mesopotamian desert. The aristocrat states in his journal that he found the lock buried deep within the ruins of a bitter blasted place older than days, or what the aristocrat took to be a temple to a fearsome death god. Why did he come to that conclusion? I don't know. They don't give us any more information at all, other than the fact that the lock was encased in a stone that was located within the center of 4 runic stones. Part of the stone that held the lock had writing in it, and the aristocrat actually sketched this writing out in his journal. He didn't understand any of the writing, and it wasn't until the lock came into the Foundation's custody that this writing was deciphered. And this is what it was translated to. Yeah. So the dude who translated these writings, Mr. McCandlish, that's such a weird name, says that this appears to be some sort of spell of containment for a being known as a pact. That's the name that we see within the translation. And this being is supposedly imprisoned within the Onyx Gemstone. Now, this being, a pact, this name, a pact, has opened an entirely new can of worms for this SCP proposal. Up until this point, we have not gotten any real information on this thing, other than the fact that the microwaves radiating off of the white parts of the lock are identical to the microwaves of the observable universe. But this mention of the being known as a pact changes the whole game. He fucked the game up with this one. A pact is a death god of some sort who was present during the first hideoff. And we don't know exactly who or what a pact is. Like, it could be some cosmic being, like God, you know, and as a god would be. Or it could just be like some dude. Or it could be another SCP-001 proposal that we'll get into in the future. We have speculations, but nobody really knows what it is. One thing is for certain, however. It was present during the destruction of the first hideoff. Now, what is the first hideoff, you may ask? Well, within the SCP Foundation lore, there is a cult/religious group. They call themselves a religion, but like, if technically by like the definition cult, they're a cult, but not really. They can often be seen sacrificing their own members in order to please a god and save the universe. I don't know, bro. I think it's a cult. They call themselves the Church of the Second Hideoff. Now, this is just the name that it has on Earth, but their religion and belief spans all over the galaxy and is more widely known as the Orthian, or Tothan. Or Tothan religion, or Tothan, not Orthian. So I guess on Earth they would be like a cult, but off Earth in like the galaxy they would be religion. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter at all. But what you need to know is that there's a lot to delve into here. The Church of the Second Hideout's lore is very deep and rooted within the SCP universe. So much so that I don't think I would be able to fit it into this entry, so I'm just gonna briefly summarize some of the main points of the religion. So the main belief of the Church of the Second Hideout is that the first universe got destroyed by a species or race called the Vuru. More specifically, the first universe was devoured by a being called the Devourer. The Devourer is some kind of Voru god. And we are currently living in the second universe, the second Hideout. They call the universe Hideout in their religion, because the first one got devoured by the Devourer. It's speculated by the Church of the Second Hideout that this Devourer figure is either the Scarlet King, which is another SCP-001 proposal that we will go over later on in the video. This guy, I can't say that name, I'm not even going to try. Santa, or our boy a pact. And I believe that the Devourer is indeed a pact, because the lock is incredibly boring to me unless it has some universe devouring god held within it. I also have a theory for this SCP that somebody has definitely thought of before me, but I haven't seen it anywhere online, so I may as well just say it here. So, in Hideout lore, when the first universe was destroyed by the Devourer, aka a pact, a group of survivors were able to flee from this first universe into the second universe. And upon reaching the second universe, this group of survivors created the Ortithian religion. I'm sorry, I messed it up again. Ortothan religion, which eventually led to the Church of the Second Hideout on Earth. I would also like to note that 7 of these survivors were able to ascend to godhood whenever they made that switch from the first universe to the second universe. This meant that they were able to protect the second universe from the Voru. Well, what if the group of survivors, more specifically the 7 individuals that were able to ascend to godhood, were somehow able to lock the first universe and the Devourer within a lock? More specifically, a beautiful black onyx with a golden complex lock wrapped around it. Think about it, right? The white part of the lock emits identical microwaves to our universe. And this lock supposedly is containing a being within it called a pact. And we know that this pact figure may very well be the Devourer that devoured the first universe. I think you can see what I'm getting at here. So what if, right, hypothetically, in order to keep a pact from entering our second universe and consuming it, the gods from the original universe locked a pact, and the first consumed universe that's probably within a pact, probably in its stomach or something like that since it consumed it, inside of this indestructible lock, and hide the key forever. I don't know, dude. It's just a thought. I don't really know much about Hideout lore. This theory could just be completely wrong, and it could just be something that I'm missing here, but that sounds pretty cool to me. That's what I'm believing right now with the lock. Like, if I don't believe that, if there's nothing else to it, then this is just a not a very good proposal. Overall, the lock is pretty neat. I like it, especially with my theory. It takes some research to actually understand like what's going on with it. But once you do the research, it's definitely a cool proposal. It's a thumbs up for me. I like it. Moving on. The 5th SCP-001 proposal is Bright's SCP-001 proposal, known as The Factory. Codename, Bright. The Factory. SCP-001 is an O5's tale. Now, I know I said this for the Gate Guardian, but this one is also, I love this one. This is like top 10 for me, right? Before we get into the details of the factory, I first want to point out that this SCP report is a little bit different compared to all the other SCP reports. This report is not actually a report at all, but instead a tale from one of the O5 members. So most of the information that I'm going to be talking about in this video comes directly from this O5 member. SCP-001 is an old factory built in the early 19th century by a man named James Anderson. The factory is a mile across at its widest, 3 stories tall, and boasts a special 7-story tall tower near the front gate of the factory that Anderson himself lived in. Anderson designed the factory to be the ultimate factory, capable of taking care of everything, even including housing. People could be born, work, live, and die there, all without ever leaving the confines of the factory. And within the factory, that's what they did, dude. They worked. They did everything from the raising and slaughtering of cattle to textiles. On paper, the factory seemed like a dream job for anybody who wanted to settle down and work a safe and reliable job. But this couldn't be further from the truth. You see, the factory for the workers within it was a living nightmare. Factory workers were forced to work 16-hour days, only shutting down on Sundays, from sunrise to sunset. Workers were also not given individual rooms. Instead, they were forced to share rooms with 8 other people. Medical attention in the factory was unheard of. If you were injured, you were expected to continue your duties. And if you didn't, then you were dragged off by the sadistic security force, never to be heard from again. And this isn't even the worst part of the factory. James Anderson, the man who created the factory, was a horrible and disturbed man. He was likely the follower of some sort of pagan gods, or simply just a Satan worshiper. I say simply, but like in practice, that's not really simply, like you can't just simply be a Satan worshiper. I guess you could. I don't know. Regardless, what is known is that he was incredibly exact with the way that he built his factory, and he made most, if not all, of his money on the blood, sweat, and body parts of the lower class. Everything within the factory had a reason, especially the placement of the machinery within the factory. You see, the floors within the factory were engraved with arcane symbols, but these arcane symbols were only visible whenever blood flowed across them. And you can kind of get the gist. Machine hurts workers, blood flows, arcane symbol appears. Details like this show that the factory was something more for Anderson. It wasn't just a cash cow, no. The factory had a more sinister tone to it. For 40 years, the factory cranked out all sorts of things for people, like meat, clothes, weapons, everything under the sun. And remember when I said Anderson made his money off the blood, sweat, and body parts of the lower class? Yeah, that meat's not beef. And that red shirt was not made from red dye. You catch my drift, right? Yeah. Eventually, someone escaped the factory and was able to meet with President Grant in 1875. And upon hearing what was going on inside of the factory, the president enlisted the aid of the 05 member and his old crew. Eventually, someone escaped the factory and was able to meet with President Grant in 1875. And upon hearing what was going on inside of the factory, the president enlisted the aid of the 05 member and his old crew. And this is where the real story begins. Upon entering the factory, 05 describes people seeing chained up to the assembly line, living next to dead. They saw children working underneath machines with the majority of their flesh scourged from their bones. While they were taking over the factory, he says that the security force was not much of an issue. But Anderson's creations, on the other hand, were a little bit more difficult to handle. You see, Anderson had been taking these injured workers and experimenting on them. He turned these workers into abominations, men with multiple arms sewn together. Some were even combined with animals. 05 describes them as mankind's worst nightmares. I don't know if y'all have ever played the game Path of Exile, but there's a specific zone in Path of Exile, Act 3. I think it's the Lunaris Temple or something like that. They were experimenting on humans, and whenever I read that, that's the first thing that comes to mind for me. And it is the most horrifying things you will ever see in your life. And these abominations kept coming, wave after wave. And possibly the worst part of the whole ordeal, while fighting these monstrosities within the factory, 05 and his team found Anderson's breeding pits, with little girls as young as 8 years old being chained up to the wall, to be repeatedly raped in order to breed new workers. Eventually, they found Anderson cowering in his office and hung him from his 7-story tower by his own entrails. And as Anderson hung, all he could do was laugh. He said it didn't matter. They could kill him, but the factory would still go on. And even after 24 hours of being hung by his own entrails, Anderson was still laughing. So eventually they had to cut him down, and then they had him drawn and quartered, and then they burnt his remains. 05 and his team spent the next week cleaning and freeing all of the workers from the factory, all the while putting things down within the factory that they would dare not say out loud. However, while cleaning out the factory, they found things. Useful things, anomalies, things that didn't really make sense. They found a multitude of different things, such as a toy gun that shot real bullets, a yo-yo that would flay the skin of anyone that it touched, hammers that only worked on human flesh, a breed of skeleton horse that ran faster than anything that you have ever seen, cloaks that allowed men to enter shadowy dimensions, And upon finding all of these anomalous things, the crew came to a crossroads. Do we keep these items for our own personal profit? Do we return them back to the president, or do we just outright destroy them? Well, the crew could never come to a consensus, which made them all go their own separate ways. The group's leader, 05, and 12 others decided to use the factory as a base of operations of some sort. They wanted to use the factory's products to protect humanity. And this group of 13 individuals went on to create the SCP Foundation. Those who believed that the factory and its products should be destroyed or brought back to the president went on to create the Allied Occult Initiative. Those who stole the products and used them for their own personal profit formed the Church of the Broken God, believing that some of the products were from God himself. And one of the members from the group decided to steal some of the products and sell them for personal gain, similar to the Church of the Broken God, but they went on to create another organization. They went on to create Marshall, Carter, and Dark Ltd. And on a more positive note, I guess, one of the workers from the factory went on to become Dr. Wondertainment. This is a being within the SCP universe that creates anomalous kid toys. This guy's pretty cool, and we'll see him pop up later in other SCP-001 proposals. As time went on, 05 and the 12 others created a town around the factory, and the factory was effectively the very first base of the Foundation. They used the factory to secure and contain SCPs. This was the very first site that the Foundation ever had. And it was all well and dandy until one day a race known as the Fairies attacked the factory and killed everyone and everything within it. But not before warning the Foundation about the factory. You see, the Fairies knew about the factory. They knew the factory was bad news, and they attempted to warn the Foundation about the factory multiple times before. And instead of listening to the Fairies, the Foundation's response was to hunt the Fairies and kill them. It's not really explained why the Foundation was just like hunting fairies. Eventually, like, some aristocrat hired the Foundation to hunt fairies, but they were hunting fairies long before this aristocrat hired the Foundation to do so. Well, while the fairies were slaughtering everyone and everything within the factory, 05 ran deep into the depths of the factory trying to escape them. And eventually he came across a mysterious door with an even more mysterious language inscribed within the door. And upon stepping through the door, he came face to face with the living consciousness of the factory and Anderson's remains. You can't get rid of this dude. I hate Anderson. I really don't, but I do, because what he did. But at the same time, he's such an interesting character, because we have nothing behind Anderson, right? Like, we have no lore behind Anderson. We don't know how he managed to create this factory. That's a whole nother video. Stay on course, Gavin. Come on, man. You got this. The factory offered 05 a deal. The factory would rewind time before the slaughter of the Foundation, and also help the Foundation in killing all of the fairies, causing a genocide of these fairies. But in return, 05 must give the factory human sacrifices. And not having any other choice, 05 agreed. This led to the genocide of the fairies and the Foundation being permanently indebted to the factory. And indebted they were. Even after burying the factory in rubble, after exploding it, the Foundation was still required to give the factory human sacrifices. Because if they didn't, the factory would make more and more dangerous SCPs. That was long, I know, but it's kind of hard to understand the significance of the factory without understanding the story behind it. Like, I could have just said the factory makes SCPs whenever the Foundation doesn't give it human sacrifices, but that would just do this proposal injustice. It's too good not to explain it, in my opinion. The stories and details of the factory is what makes it such a good SCP-001 proposal. And with that being said, let's move into the sixth and final proposal of this section, Dr. Man's The Spiral Path. Codename, Dr. Man, The Spiral Path. Object class, Embla. SCP-001 The Spiral Path explains a circular gravel path in a wooded area in Essex County. When the path is traveled counterclockwise, the trail will continuously go uphill even after reaching the trail's original point. And when traveled clockwise, the trail will go down, even after reaching the trail's original point. When traveled, the trail shows the same amount of uphill and downhill travel as you would expect, but altitude of the person on the path traveling the path never changes. It always stays the same no matter what. So basically, it's a trail that makes the traveler walk in circles either uphill or downhill without ever actually going up or down the mountain that the trail is located on, even though it feels like you are. And that's it. That's it. No, I'm pulling your leg. The spiral path is similar to the factory in that the significance of it comes from the story that surrounds the spiral path. The only difference is the factory's report is the background information that we need in order to understand it. But the spiral path report is just a normal report. It has the normal description, the normal item number, the normal containment procedures, like we would see in any other SCP-001 report. But the background information that we need to know in order to understand the spiral path is within a link that is in the report. Kind of confusing, I know. It's not very relevant to it, but I did want to mention it. So, like I said, the meat and potatoes of this SCP comes from a story that can be found within its report. This story is called Document 001-05. The story starts off with what seems to be an 05 member talking directly to us. And from context clues, we can kind of guess that we're here to take the place of an 05 member that has recently passed away. 05 starts this story off incredibly strong. He says that all the retrievals or recoveries of SCPs that we have done over the years have been false and have been fabricated. And we have never discovered an SCP in the entire Foundation history. And with that, he begins his story. That's like the best hook ever. That's the best way to get somebody interested in a story. He talks of a man named Aaron Siegel, a brilliant man, on par with Einstein, he says. 05 says he knew Siegel very well, and that he was his brother. One day, while hiking through Essex County, Siegel came across a gravel path and followed it. And he noticed that he had been going uphill far longer than what the path should have taken. He noted that he should be above some nearby hills, but he's not. He's right where he started. And upon closer inspection, he realizes that he is right where he started, literally. Right where he started, without a foot of downward travel. Siegel found that the path does not conform to, pure geometry of Euclid. Dude, there's so much, I'm just like a YouTuber. I'm not a rocket scientist. I don't know what that means. Siegel found something different. He found an anomaly, something unexplainable. So he got right into action. He built the shack right at the start of the path, and he began studying the path. Eventually, Siegel was able to derive equations from his studies of the path. And these equations allowed him to begin creating SCPs. And the very first SCP that he created was SCP-005, the Skeleton Key. And this right here is the biggest downfall of this proposal, in my opinion. The way that Siegel studies this path and allow him to come up with equations that magically allow him to make SCPs is not explained whatsoever. Like, I get it. You can't explain nuclear equations and physics to a monkey. Siegel was a genius after all, so I can only imagine that these equations were incredibly complex. However, I just think it's a cop-out, dude. You can't just say, okay, one day he found this path and then he was able to make SCPs from this path. Like, give us something to work with. Was it the trees on the path? Was it the mushrooms that grew near the path? Was it a hobbit that lived in one of the trees that told him super secret CIA information that then allowed him to make SCPs? How was this dude able to figure out equations from a gravel path in the middle of the woods? I think anything at this point would be better than nothing, and I think nothing is what we get. I don't know. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and things that don't make sense to me, I tend not to like too much. Siegel brought in others, including his brother, and created the Foundation with the spiral path at its core. And in the beginning, this small group that Siegel brought in had high hopes. They thought that they were going to be able to change the world with the objects that they were able to create with the spiral path. At first, they made small items. These small items include the Fountain of Youth, SCP-006, the Bouncing Ball, SCP-018, and even a Civil War statue, SCP-011. And as time went on, they got a little bit more confident, and they began experimenting on humans. And eventually, typically, whenever you start experimenting on humans, things begin to go wrong. and morality starts to look a little bit dull. And one day, while experimenting, O5 made the zombie plague, SCP-008. Along with other nightmarish SCPs, such as the Pipe Nightmare, SCP-015, and the Stairwell, SCP-087. And at this point, they realized, okay, we need help. We need help containing some of these creations. If you know anything about the Pipe Nightmare, you know that, yeah, they need help. So, a member of the group decided to show what they've done to the United States military, claiming that they found all of these items. And it's from this point forward that the group began to grow into the Foundation. They became international and started to receive funding from all over the world. They brought in weapons, personnel, and powerful figures into the Foundation, all the while fabricating stories for every single SCP that they created from the Spiral Path. Sometimes they would set up an SCP to be found by a field team, or sometimes they would just simply write a report and that SCP would appear out of nowhere and nobody ever really questioned it. And at this point, I think I can confidently say this is where the Foundation started to go downhill. O5 says with all of the funding and personnel and support, the group got a little too bold. Even going so far as to say that O5 cut up a little boy and turned him into the flesh that hates, SCP-610. O5 says that they were the ones that created the Seven Brides, SCP-231. And if you know anything about the Seven Brides, you know that this is an absolutely horrible and unforgiving act. He says that they took them from an orphanage and arranged for what followed. There were no accidents. They knew what they were doing. But he'll be damned if he can remember the reason why. So, just to put that into context, these people kidnapped 7 young girls from an orphanage, or separate orphanages. What's the plural of orphanage? Orphanage. Is there a plural? Yeah, so it is orphanages. I don't know why. I thought it might have been something else. They then got them pregnant with SCPs and then made the remainder of 6 of their lives absolutely horrible, while still torturing the 7th girl to this day. And then O5 says that they kept moving forward even after 231. They made the Blood Pond, SCP-354, Abel, SCP-76-2, and a damnable reptile, which I think is SCP-682. And then, even after all of this, they didn't stop. O5 says, how could we stop? The only way to survive the events that their past selves put into motion was to better understand the Spiral Path. O5 describes it as so. We're on the back of a terrible beast, and if we try jumping off now, we'll be crushed beneath. I think I might have said this earlier, but I absolutely love it when there's stories involved with SCPs like this. It just adds so much more detail and life to the SCP that I think we wouldn't otherwise get. In summary, the Spiral Path is not only a path in the woods that never ends, but can also somehow manifest SCPs. Like I mentioned earlier, it's not exactly known how this path manifests SCPs, and I think that's easily the worst part of this SCP proposal. Like, it's a spiral path in the middle of the woods. How exactly do these SCPs appear? Do they, like, come walking up the path, or do they drop out of the sky? What goes on? I feel like if this SCP was like a door in the middle of the woods or something like that, that would make a little bit more sense, but I don't know, just a thought. And with that being said, this officially concludes the first section of the SCP-001 proposals. I'm going to try to drop each section like near one another, but I'm a busy guy with busy things. So with that being said, thank you all for watching.